timing is right. Their window is now for these young guys that are on this team that have matured. They've been through series together. They've been through seasons together. They've been through battles together. And I got a chance to experience some of that. And now being on the opposite end and going against a healthy Celtics team, obviously without Robert Williams, but you're just seeing there's a difference in their verve. There's a difference in the way they approach the game. And also they have a set offense and defense that they rely on. Ime's been a huge part of that. But you got to give credit to that guy that's sitting in the president's role as well now, that all of a sudden just, we don't get to see him as often. Brad Stevens definitely has a lot to do with that.
Almost sounds like Kyrie misses the Celtics. Carrying the load, presented by the Chevrolet Silverado. Our very own John Tomase posing the question. With the season in control, is Kyrie Irving about to quit on the Nets? Tomase writes, having seen this act before, we'd advise Nets fans to prepare for the worst. These Celtics punch people in the mouth, and Irving's jaw ain't exactly titanium. All right, we bring in John Tomase, who's hanging out at Fenway Park, but he loves himself some basketball, so we bring him into this discussion alongside Chris Mannix. Expand on that, Tomase. You had some great lines in that column. Why do you feel like Kyrie Irving is just primed to quit on the Nets the way he quit on the Celtics a few years ago?
Yeah, Trenni, because we've seen it before, and it's not only 2019. 2019, for me, still fills me with rage. Just as a sports fan, the way he played that Game 5 in particular, it wasn't just Game 5, but particularly the last moments of Game 5, where he just stood in the middle of the floor on defense and did not even pretend to try, did not even move, because his heart was already in Brooklyn and he knew he was out the door. And that's how you treat the franchise that tried to make you the face of the franchise. So that rubbed me the wrong way. Let's not forget about previously, though, Game 7 against LeBron, where they made that improbable run. And we all kind of looked at each other like, wait, where's Kyrie? He's getting rhinoplasty or something? Like, he decided to leave. He had to leave for Game 7 of that series. So we have seen this guy quit on teams multiple times, and I can't quite bring myself to guarantee that he's going to quit now. Like Mannix said, they're going home. Maybe he and Durant light it up, but we've seen it. What he said about the Celtics after the game sounded like a concession speech, and so we know that's in him. We know that quit is in him, and I am fascinated to see if it comes out again in Brooklyn.
Beware Kyrie Irving at your own risk. All the things you mentioned, John, are completely accurate. What he did at the end in Boston was bad. But the Cleveland Cavaliers are not in 3 consecutive NBA Finals without Kyrie Irving. The Cleveland Cavaliers are not NBA champions without Kyrie Irving making one of the greatest shots in recent Finals memory. This guy has made shots and been a huge playmaker in the postseason. And just one thought, John, I know you know this being in these press scrums, but I was there when Kyrie made that statement about the Celtics' time is now. He was asked twice about the chemistry with his team and then asked about the chemistry with the Boston Celtics. So it wasn't like he volunteered this information. He just gave kind of an interesting answer, but he was prodded and pushed in that direction. I just think, it's just way too risky to believe that this guy is going to quit. There is way too much talent in him, and he is just 4 days removed from putting up 39 points and nearly beating the Celtics almost by himself in Game 1 of this series.
Okay, so what do you make then, Mannix, of his performance last night? Because he did carry the Nets to a near win in Game 1 if it wasn't for that tremendous last-second shot by Jason Tatum. So last night, was he just physically outmatched by the Celtics defense in a way that he wasn't in Game 1? Was he a little more mentally checked out? What do you attribute his poor performance to last night?
Well, he wasn't making the tough shots that he was making in Game 1. He had those 39 points in Game 1, but you look back at the shots he made, they were tough shots. He had Marcus Smart draped all over him for most of it. He just wasn't making those shots in Game 2, but he's going to have a couple of days off now. They don't play again until Saturday. He'll sleep in his own bed. He'll go home. He'll practice in his own gym. I'm telling you, he's going to come out firing in this game on Saturday. I know the Celtics are not going to be underestimating him. I would just warn everybody not to underestimate him. I've seen this guy too many times dictate the pace of a game and dictate the flow of a game with his offense. He is more than capable of doing it again.
Mannix, I don't disagree with a word of that, but what I would say is he was listless in game 2. He had that 1,000-yard stare towards the end of the game, and so that's the kind of thing that is a tip-off maybe that, oh, is he checking out a little bit mentally? Maybe he turns it completely around for game 3. We will certainly see. And the last thing I'll say is I hope you at least appreciate my boxing reference there with his titanium, John.
And I would also say, just last word on this, that, you know, while he was tremendous and a key piece to that Cavaliers team, recent history, he has disappeared when it matters most. Literally,
it's not that. No. That's not recent. 2017 wasn't that long ago.
The Celtics defense giving Kyrie and Kevin Durant fits in game 2. It was 5 years ago, Mannix, 5. Kyrie held to just 10 points while Durant scored 27, but he needed 20 free throw attempts to do so. Durant is shooting just 31.7% in the series and has committed 12 turnovers. Ime Udoka thinks his familiarity with them after coaching in Brooklyn last season has played a role in containing the two stars.
Being around the league for a while, you know those guys, but you get to know them a little more intimately, and you know when you're coaching them and being with them for a season. And so, you know, me being a defensive-minded guy, I think it's beneficial to be with those guys and see some of the things that other teams have done against them, ideas I have in my head, and you know, just being around them, you learn a little more of the intricacies of their game.
A lot changes in 5 years, Mannix. A lot changes. All right, but let's get back to the discussion we started to have in the A block, which was about the coaching. Forsberg, what strikes me, and again, maybe I'm off here, but part of me thinks that Steve Nash, for the most part with this team, has not had to really ever coach, because I think a lot of us look at him and we see him more as a facilitator, and Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving sort of being in charge. And I wonder if Steve Nash has the ear of his team, has his guys in order to call them into a huddle and say, what we're doing isn't working, do this instead.
I just remember Kyrie, I think it was, before a season being like, you know, Jacques Vaughn could be the coach one night. And like, you know, you get the sense that they call the shots down there. And I get it. But like Steve Nash in that moment, when the offense isn't working, when you're just going ISO at the top and Kevin Durant is getting frustrated and swarmed, you've got to make an adjustment. And at no point last night did you feel like that they played the chess match. Meanwhile, I don't know necessarily like that Ime's doing anything world-altering, but the fact that he doesn't panic and that he gets them to stick with what they know and, you know, it just goes into that locker room and shows clips and says, here's what we can do a little bit better. I think there's value in that. And I do think he certainly pressed the right buttons, leaning on Peyton Pritchard down the stretch because he had it going and was spreading the floor, getting his guys better shots in better locations. Those things all matter. And I do think if you're going to give an advantage in the chess match, clearly right now, Ime has got it.
There are just no adjustments being made on the Nets side of the floor. I mean, they're coming out of timeouts and they're not running anything. I mean, I have zero basketball mind when it comes to play calling, but I can tell you that maybe you should try running Kevin Durant off screens so he's not wrestling with Jason Tatum, Grant Williams, and Al Horford all the time. I know enough to say, why don't you run a Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving pick and roll, which I would think would be lethal. What do you do in that situation when you have two players that can score from all three levels running a pick and roll? They're not doing any of that, nothing. And that is a major factor in this series. Look, I don't think Durant would be struggling at the rate he's been struggling if every single offensive possession he wasn't just being handed the ball and told to make a play. Yes, he's a great isolation player. You go back to his days, though, with Golden State. He was part of a system, and he was highly successful in part because he was in that system. Steve Nash, this is the biggest game, this game 3, in Steve Nash's coaching career. If he doesn't come up with something new, there's going to be, I think personally, a lot of pressure on the Nets to maybe make a change.
Mannix, does he have the authority to make that change? I mean, as Forsberg referenced, as I said, it feels a little bit like it's not his team, it's Durant and Irving's team, and it's been that way for too long for him to step in and say, do this, do that.
Yeah, but there's no way that players with the intelligence of Kyrie and Kevin Durant think that it's sound basketball strategy to play isolation all day long. That doesn't beat anybody. It hasn't beat anybody. I don't believe it. No, I do not believe it. These guys have been part of winning organizations. They've won championships. They know what it takes to win championships. I don't believe they think handing them the ball and telling them to go make plays is the way to go. And look, If your coach doesn't have the authority to do something like that, to actually coach the team, he should not be coaching the team.
Well, the only point I would make is that Kyrie Irving once decided to take it upon himself and guard Giannis Antetokounmpo for the majority of a playoff series. And I know Brad Stevens wasn't sitting there going, man, I really hope he decides to call the switch and defend this all-star who's 7 inches taller than him and can dunk on him at any time he wants. So sometimes superstars just get their way. And I do think it's a little bit on Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving to put themselves in better positions, maybe become the willing sort of playmakers that Jason Tatum made himself. And certainly coaching can help that. But there's only so much a coach can do from the sideline. You have to have your stars buy in. And if they're just going to try to force the issue on their own and the Celtics are going to sit there and load up on them defensively, then this is going to be the outcome.
All right.